Okay, so the next thing I want to talk to you about is in an attempt to address the problem that we discovered trying to do our three-dimensional pyramid color chart was that it failed because I didn't know how many steps there would be between one pole and another. You know, how many intermediary steps would there be in transitioning, searching for that elusive, just noticeable difference between one hue and another. So I created another chart, which is not nearly as organized as this because I couldn't lay it out ahead of time because I don't know how many steps there are going to be. So I created this chart, which is over here. So we're going to go to this other chart. And you will see a much more disorganized fashion. But I started out by just painting yellow here, I painted red here, I painted blue here, and I painted blue here. And the idea was to say, on this side, between this yellow dot and this red dot, I'm going to see how many different steps of orange I can get. On this bottom row, I'm going to see how many different steps of green I can get. And up here, I'm going to see how many different steps of purple I can get. And then over here, I did a grayscale. Okay, so I went ahead and did that. And I just mixed this 50-50, and I landed actually here. And then I only found about 2 steps between there and the red, but I found these several steps between here and the yellow. Here on the purple side, I mixed these 50-50 and I landed about here, which is a little dark. These are basically indistinguishable to me. I mean, but maybe you get another step there, and then you got these several steps that you could get in here toward red. I mean, that's probably closer to purple than that is. Okay, so then we come down here to the green side. I mixed these 50-50. I landed about, where was it? I landed here actually. And, I feel that this is probably a closer representation of green, but you can see I got 1 step here and then I'm basically at blue. But I can do several steps to transition down to yellow. Then I did something a little different. I wanted to explore what happens when you mix these colors with their complementary colors as if we were moving up the pyramid to see how many steps there would be. So I mixed the purple approaching yellow. I found that the 50-50 is about here. When I say 50-50, what I mean, no, I'm sorry. This was the 50-50. But the things I'm looking for is when I'm looking for a secondary of a mixture, I'm looking for the color that least resembles the original poles of whatever I'm mixing. So that's the reason why I said here was my 50-50, but this is what I would consider a green, for example. You know what I'm saying? So that's a 50-50 mix, but this is the least resemblant of yellow or blue, just to give you an example. Okay, so this is my 50-50 mix, but this is probably the least resemblant of the 2 poles. Okay, this is a blue and an orange, and here's my 50-50 mix. But I'm thinking probably this. Oh no, not this one. Probably this green here would probably be the least resemblant of the 2 poles. Okay, here I have green, and we're going to approach red. That was my 50-50 mix, which is like a burnt umber or something maybe. And I got 3 steps this way, about 4 steps that way. It probably is the most unique color in that spectrum. So that's how that worked. Now here's my black. When I did 50-50 black and titanium white, I landed right here, which is very dark. Okay, probably an actual medium gray would be closer to about here. Okay, so it's adding much more white. And then I added more white, and I, several steps, and then all the way to here, and then I said, okay, you're pretty close to white. So I stopped. So that's what I did. Now, once I had that figured out, if I wanted to go back and create my three-dimensional pyramid chart, with or without the added sections to explore into white and everything, I could do that. Never did get around to doing it because it takes an incredible amount of time to do that, and it's a lot of different paint mixing, and there's a lot of process to that. I never got around to doing it, but this was very informative. What I did do was create a summation chart, so I'm going to get to that now. In the summation chart, actually, I guess I should mention this before. Sorry. This right here is one more chart similar to the others, which just explores complementary colors to complementary colors. So I did purple to green, and this was my 50-50, and I went both ways. And then I did an orange to purple. That was my 50-50, and I went both ways. This is my purple to green. That was my 50-50, and I went both ways. So these are the types of studies that I would recommend that you do. Don't look at my results and try to make sense out of them. You need to do your own work and do your own results with the paint that you use. Don't do these studies in student grade paints and then paint with artist grade paints of a different brand. That would be ridiculous and a waste of your time. This is the summation. Okay, this is a chart I did, which shows several different color wheels. This chart shows transparent and opaque colors, and that's why these lines are drawn here, so you can see which ones show through and which ones don't. This is a semi-transparent yellow. That's a transparent yellow, to give you an idea. This is a semi-transparent. This is more semi-transparent. This is more opaque. This is the titanium white right here. This is the ivory black. This is some other black. All of these on here, I've noted what they are by Old Holland Classic color code. So if you go onto the Old Holland Classic website and you look at what is an A75 or an A74 or an A1 or an A5 or an A4 or a B229 or an E118 or an E119 or B178, you know exactly what that color is according to them that I used in this chart. Okay, here I'm looking at what happens when I take this blue, this B35, and I add black to it. What happens when I take this B35 and I add white to it? I want to see how does it transition this way or that way. How long does it take till it gets pale and all this? Now, in some instances, I ran out of space because I have this over here, so I couldn't keep going. Okay, but down here where I had more space, I could keep taking that yellow out and just seeing how long does it take for it to pale out. So this is a B35, E29, B12. This is a B226, a C24, a B22, and a C14. This is a C223. This is a D151 and a D9. And this is my grayscale, just, taking the black and adding white to it. Okay, and over here is the ones that I finally landed on that I found to be the most consistent for controlled color, which is my C247, my D181, and my D11 for my magenta, my blue, and my yellow, and then my A75 black, which I don't see any need in actually buying because, as I have already demonstrated, you can produce a black, and so why would you spend money on a black? Okay, but you will need to get titanium white so that you can lighten whatever color you produce. Now here, what we have is something else very interesting. Like I said, these are using 3 different types of colors to make these wheels. 4. Okay, but I lined up all the blues. Now, when I lined up all the blues, I made it so that all the steps between each one of these, points is, equally spaced. So for me to do that, on this outer wheel, this C247, I used this magenta, D181, and it fell out about here. But the yellow, this D11, is over here. So you can see how many more steps there are between this and this than there are between this and this or this or this. Okay, this is a C223. Here's a D151. And then I put the D9 is over here. Now that's a little bit more evenly balanced. Okay, this is a B226, C14, and a C24. Those are pretty evenly balanced. Okay, this is a B35, B12, and looks like an E29. Those are pretty evenly balanced. So you can kind of see which color patterns that you can use that are a little bit more evenly balanced on a color wheel, which ones produce exactly what shades of what. So these yellows all to me look a little orangish, but this is several years later. Now this is at least 7 or 8 years ago that I did this chart, and color does change over time. So it may not have looked like this when I originally painted it, but that's the other reason why you want to do these things, because you can create these color studies, you can date them, you can have an idea of, well, this is what it looked like to my eye when I did it, especially if you photograph it. And then over time, you can see how that particular color in that particular brand stands up to sunlight or abuse or whatever. And, did it fade? Did it change? Some colors actually get a little yellow over time, for example. So this kind of study will tell you all about your brand of paint and everything like that. So in the next video that we get to, I'm going to tell you, in the next video that we get to, I'm going to tell you a little bit about painting materials and painting techniques that will help you be more efficient in your work and save yourself some money.